Hello, my name is Deanna Carpenter, and I am a childhood sexual abuse and domestic violence survivor, and this is my story. To fully understand, we must go back to the very beginning, before I was even a thought, back to when my mom was a teenager. My mother was born in 1948. She was a surprise baby. My grandparents already had two boys, ages 8 and 12 years old. Fast forward to 1963. My mom is a 15-year-old girl dating an 18-year-old boy. My mom becomes pregnant. They marry. My mom quits school and gives birth at the age of 16. The marriage does not last, and they divorce not long after my brother Danny is born. Eventually, my mom meets my dad while they were working at the same department store. My father had graduated high school but flunked out of college. My mother only had an eighth grade education. My dad was born in 1940, so he was 8 years older than my mom. After they got married, my dad adopted my brother Danny. When the judge asked Danny if he wanted my dad to be his dad, Danny screamed out, "No!" The adoption went through anyway. And 2 years later, I was born. 5 years after that, my younger sister Stacy was born. So there's 5 years difference between each of us kids. My first memories of abuse. My brother Danny received a TP for either his birthday or Christmas, and it was set up in the living room. We were supposed to be taking a nap in it while my mom napped on the couch. Instead, Danny took advantage of my mother napping and molested me for the first time that day. I was 3. One time my parents went out and left the two of us home alone. This was pretty common back then in the 70s. I was 3 or 4, so Danny was 8 or 9. I was laying on the couch in my little girl nightgown. Danny came over to me and told me he wanted to do something to make me feel good. He started to perform oral sex on me. I don't know if I was scared or nervous, but I wound up peeing in his mouth. And I don't remember much after that. I'd like to say that it stopped at that point, but it didn't. Danny molested me as often as he could while my mom and dad were still married. Luckily for me, that wasn't a daily occurrence. One time, my mom did take me to see a doctor because I was complaining of some pain and burning. Um, the doctor wanted to look at my genital area, and I remember them taking my clothes off, and I remember laying on the bed just crying and screaming the entire time. I don't know what the doctor told my mom. Um, my mom met a guy, truck driver, decided to leave, ran away with him. We were left alone every day after school because we were living with my dad and he worked. My sister was at my grandparents' house. She was too young to attend school, so I guess I would be around 7 years old at that time. Danny would be waiting for me every day after school. He would be naked in the bathroom or the bedroom. Some days he would make me watch him masturbate. Some days he would touch me. Other days he would force me to perform oral sex on him. Every day for 3 years, I endured this abuse. Danny was an altar boy. He was perfect in everybody's eyes. Speaking up, nobody would have believed me. I was the wallflower. The summer Danny turned 16, he moved to my mom's. She had settled in Arkansas, 8 hours away, and he moved there in May. And he died that November, on my 11th birthday. No cause of death was ever found, and this caused my mom to go into a deep depression from which she never really recovered. In her mind, he was perfect. He was a saint. Meanwhile, my sister and I were still living with my abusive father. Shortly after my brother's death, my father began molesting me. He would come into my room late at night when I was asleep or almost asleep. He would touch my just developing breasts. He would lick and suck on them while rubbing his calloused hands over them. He would put his hands between my legs and fondle my genitals. He would also perform oral sex on me. I would squeeze my eyes shut and disassociate from what was happening. I absolutely hated my body for betraying me. I stopped brushing my teeth. I stopped showering, stopped taking care of myself altogether. No one noticed. My dad, he was a judge. He was also a Catholic Sunday school teacher. He was a respected member of society, and no one would have believed me. I was bullied at school, and I wanted to die. The summer before I turned 15, my sister and I finally moved down to my mom's. Due to the abuse I had suffered as a young child and preteen, I acted out. I put myself in dangerous situations. I gave my virginity to a married manager at work. I was drinking, skipping school, and just completely self-destructing. At a party, I was drugged and anally raped one night. I was a mess. I tried to tell my mom about the abuse, and she did believe me about my dad, but refused to accept that Danny also abused me. She also never got me any help. During this time, my dad remarried. I had quit school twice, had no options, so I decided to move back to my dad's and try to graduate. I did graduate a year late. I endured bullying and continued my self-destructive patterns, but I did graduate high school. It was a few months after I graduated that my story takes another abusive turn, and I will cover that in my next video. I plan to create a number of videos telling my story in its entirety, and this was just an overview of my childhood. Future videos will discuss the different stages of my childhood, my adulthood, and my present. If you are being abused or suspect abuse, please call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453. If you are a survivor needing help, contact RAINN at www.online.rainn.org. And if you are interested in contacting me regarding speaking engagements, visit my website at www.emergingfromthedark.com. Thank you.